All right. I got my wristband on for this one. My wrist has been acting up lately. I just went out and got some wristbands today. It's working pretty good so far. I've been napping off camera. Yep. I had this sitting on the side in one of the videos and someone noticed it, so now I gotta nap it. Right? Right. Let's see. Yeah, it's a nap. It's a yap nap, 9 inches, something like that. By 6 inches at the widest point. 3 inches down there. I don't know. I don't know if it'll be a successful yap nap, other than there will be plenty of yapping. Oh yes. It's got some issues, you know. It's raw. Yeah. Now, did I do that on purpose? No, I didn't expect that. I did not expect that at all. But if it was going to snap that easy, then it was going to snap. Yeah, I think there was a defect there. Solves that problem. Now I don't have to make a large point. And see, it snapped right in the thick, very thick area. Let's see. Let's put my glasses on. Now this particular napping session has taken a different course all of a sudden. So instead of going from a large piece, it's now a very clunky piece. I was going to put the big piece as the thumbnail. If it worked out. But it didn't, so here we go. It actually naps pretty good for being raw. I'm surprised. These are coming out really easily. Now, if it was really easy to nap, that wouldn't have curved upward. That would have curved following this turtleback. So that means it's not that easy to nap. If it was easy to nap, it would have curved right over the top of that. That's one way to tell. Yesterday I hit my knuckle pretty hard. Actually, I hit this one and this one with the stone I was napping. I hit it with a hammer and it just transmitted that energy right into my finger. So I got to be careful. Careful that I don't do that again. Well, there we go again. Let's see. I'm going to have to hit this extremely hard to get these flakes to travel. Yeah, this is one of the last large pieces I have. Probably, let's see, I got maybe 1 or 2 more. But they're not 9 inches, they're like 7 or 6. That's better. See, that's what it's supposed to do. But I hit my knuckle again, but it's not too bad this time. All right. I kind of floated it on my fingers so that it would have a little bit of room to move instead of having it in direct contact with my hand. Okay, Yeah, to be more productive, I have tried to nap every day for hours and hours. Because it's possible to do it if you don't get injured or fatigued. Yeah. I just can't seem to do it without getting injured or fatigued. Or having my wrist act up. Even with the brace, I can still feel it. I was spalling a lot yesterday. And a little bit today. I made a couple of short videos. Video shorts, as they call it on YouTube. If it's under 30 seconds, it changes it from a regular upload to a shorts upload. Right? I think it's 30 seconds. So I've been experimenting with that. Looking around the internet for background music. I found a guy I really liked. It's cool. You can see, you know, if you look at the shorts, you can click on the where the audio source comes from. Yeah, obvious stuff for most of you, but I really don't explore that end of YouTube till lately. Well, that's not good. I thought for sure that would go. It was easy to nap earlier. There we go. Yeah, I was spalling smaller stuff, but even smaller stuff affects my wrist. Because some of it is really, really tough. I have a big stash of really, really tough stones that are in the 4-inch range. Some of that stuff is not nappable at all. But you don't know until you actually do it. You don't know until you actually try it out. I'm going to try to do a flint napping video every day. Seems like I have better results on my engagement and the revenue, the ad revenue, and everything if I do a video every day. It's funny though, the more videos I do per day, however, the less ad revenue I get per video. Funny how that works. And I get paid more per view for the videos that get less than 1,000 views than the ones that get more than 1,000 views. Yeah. I get more per view on the smaller ones. We'll see if that changes over time. It may be because it looks like my channel is not it's not promoted. If you type in Flintknapping, my channel is not one of the first ones that comes up. there are channels that have less engagement than mine, but yet they're before mine in the search. Anyway, I don't know how all that stuff works. Sometimes I take a little bit of time off and do research on that stuff. But most of my information I get for doing my videos is from the comment section. If I want to know what is working or not working, I just look at the comment section. Yep. Yeah, trying to thin down a thin piece is the hardest thing in flint knapping, other than not breaking it. But that's what everybody wants to know. New guys, first thing they want to know, how do I thin a thin piece? I got a thin flake, how do I thin it thinner? How do I make it thinner? It's the hardest thing. As a new guy, no matter how you try, you're not going to be able to thin down a thin piece. As a new guy. That's going to take some practice. But if you manage to do it, realize that's luck. Yep. If you're thinning as a new guy, you're getting lucky. And some of it is beginner's luck, right? Because your brain's tuned in, very aware of things as a beginner. As you get more experienced, you tend to slack off, and sometimes you make big mistakes. Anyway, beginner's luck will get you excited. Sometimes you'll be able to thin a thin piece by luck, and then you'll go, oh, I know how to do this. Yeah, what's so hard about it? And then in a few weeks or months, it starts going downhill. You start breaking everything, and you're wondering what's going on. Then you start watching YouTube videos again. Yep. Anyway, I guess there's not going to be too much. Well, I can do the other piece. Yeah, okay. I was going to say there's not going to be too much on this video because I'm not going to make this into a point. I'm just going to biface it, turn it into a trade blank, and sell it. Yeah. Let somebody else finish it out. It can be heated to 450, even up to 550 degrees, this type of stuff. But I would start at 350. Just in case, because some of this stuff does break up, like the darker. This is Medina County chert. Some of it will break up at a lower temperature, so start at 350. If it naps fine at 350, just leave it. And if you don't know what heat treat is, just do a YouTube search for Jack Crafty heat treat. I got a little bit of a heat treat description in the description box. Hopefully I remember to put that in this video too. Yeah, I wrote a blurb for all my videos so I can just copy and paste the blurb into the description so that people can look at it and get some of the questions answered before they start emailing me. I guess I'm gonna try to take that blemish out. Yeah. Anyway, you can heat treat this up to 550 sometimes, but it varies. Same with all stones. Sometimes, you know, you can be told that it'll heat treat at a certain temperature and it won't work for you. Either it'll ruin it or it's not nappable. It needs higher heat. So you have to experiment, and I suggest starting with an experimental batch of flakes at a lower temperature than what you're told. You know, heat up, let it cool down, take it out, nap it. And if it doesn't meet the requirements, or if it's fine, it's either going to meet the requirements or it's not. The requirements are, can it be napped by you? Can you nap it? Some people will say it just needs a little bit of heat and it's nappable, and then you go to nap it and you can't nap it. Some guys like napping really, really hard stuff, and they say, nap's fine. Yeah. Yeah, but they don't tell you that they like napping stuff that will make your teeth rattle when you hit it. They like hitting these pieces really, really hard. Yeah. So you gotta do it for yourself. Experiment yourself. I personally don't like having to hit the piece extremely hard. I'm kind of the middle of the road napper. I don't mind having to hit really, really hard. I just don't prefer it. Some guys really prefer it. They don't want to be tiptoeing through the tulips all the time with delicate strikes and being extremely careful. You know what I mean? They want to nap some stone that can handle some abuse. Which is perfectly okay. Just be aware that that may be different from your style. Or some guy that likes to nap really delicate stone is going to tell you, no, it needs more heat. And then you go to nap it, and you're one of those guys that likes to hit it really, really hard, and you first strike shatters the whole thing. And you're going, what the heck? This guy's a really good napper. He told me to heat it at a certain temperature that works great for him. And for me, it shatters into 1,000 pieces on the first hit. What's up? Because you're hitting it harder than he is. But you don't know that because you're new. You don't know what's good, what's bad, what's hard, what's soft, what's nappable, what's not nappable, what snap and half chert is and what isn't. You don't know any of that stuff. And yet you want to thin down a thin piece, which is the hardest thing in flint knapping. Yeah. It's not your fault. Everybody goes through that. Everybody. I'm showing you how to thin a thin piece, in case you haven't noticed. And if you're new, you probably didn't notice. You're just figuring, oh, this is the way you normally nap. No, this is how to thin down a thin piece. Now, I may not be able to take out that blemish. I'm working this side first, getting it pretty flat. And then I'll switch to the other side. And the way I nap is opportunistic. And I'm reaching the end of my ability to nap this with direct percussion. Yeah. See that defect? is just barely noticeable from this side. See that crystal pocket? That's just barely noticeable from this side. I didn't think that was a problem, and most people wouldn't think that is a problem. Normally it wouldn't snap that way. Yeah, I wasn't trying to remove a big flake. In fact, it's right there. I think I did remove it. The next flake was going to be right there, probably. Anyway, that solved that problem. I'm going to heat these up, by the way, these pieces. I'll offer them as heat-treated flakes stuff. Now, is breaking it in half part of thinning down a thin piece? Yeah. And now you can see firsthand that it's the hardest thing in flint knapping. Not only because it's hard because you need to practice a long time, but you never know about the stone. It'll have defects. The thinner you go, the more the defects matter. Yep. I don't care about breaking this stone. You know what I'm saying? I don't care too much about preserving the big pieces of this type of stone. Now, sometimes I get myself into a situation where people want big pieces, and so I start gathering big pieces. People want me to knap big pieces for them, so I start gathering them up. I can only do a few of those. And a lot of the ones that I attempt to do will break. And it may take several months, not days, not weeks, but several months for me to do enough of those to complete a large piece. So just be aware. Why don't I be more careful? Because it doesn't achieve the same look. I like big, bold flakes. I like the look of it when it appears to be made in 20 minutes, even though it might take 3 or 4 hours to make it. You know what I'm saying? I like to see the aggressive flaking. I'm extremely bored by the careful, methodic, not only the technique, but the look of the piece after you finish. I don't like it to look like it was made by a machine, even though I'm making it for somebody else. I will not sit down and do it if I have to make it look like a machine made it. I've tried, because life would be so much easier if I did not find that work boring. Life would be so much easier. But I find that kind of work extremely boring, and I won't sit down and do it. What kind of work? In case you weren't following, flint knapping that's very methodical and looks like it's made by machine. You know, everything well balanced, everything extremely symmetrical, no defects, no step fractures. Very even, tapered cross section. That kind of stuff. Now, people that buy artifacts or buy pieces, flint net pieces, they like that sort of stuff. That's why I say my life would be so much easier, because then I could be doing all my work on the side for people who want perfect looking large pieces. Yeah, there's more than enough work for someone who finds that kind of work enjoyable. Tons of people wanting that stuff. Probably because not very many people like or enjoy that sort of work. You know, it's kind of rare. It's kind of rare to find someone that'll crank them out one after the other very methodically, if they're not doing flake over grind. Somebody explain what flake over grind is, if the question comes up. Usually it doesn't come up anymore. Most people that watch my channel are not flint nappers, so they don't even ask. They just want to zone out looking at something that looks like you're making something. Ooh, he's making something. Yeah. They watch making stuff videos. Yeah, I like those guys too. That's why I make the no talk videos, mainly for those guys. They just want to see something being made. They don't care about the explanation. I've got hundreds. Soon I'll be able to say I've got thousands. If I get up to 2,000 videos, I'll say I got thousands of videos. On, you know, explanations of how to do, if you want me to be explaining. Yeah. Not many no talk videos. I'll try to make as many no talk videos as I can. Yep. Okay. Of course, there are nappers that watch the no talk videos as well, but it's kind of rare. This is very tough. This is the kind of stuff I think needs 550 degrees. Hold on. I gotta fix my camera setup here in a few days because it's getting loose. Too much banging around. And not because it's hitting the stones and stuff, but because I move my tripod around a little bit, you know, between the van and the workshop. Sometimes I forget it's still in the van and I drive around with it. It's banged up, shifted around, and tumbled around in the back seat. Now see, I don't know what causes that sort of crack, but that can ruin your day. This right here. See, it's not there. It starts in the middle. For some reason, I don't know. And I don't know if it's trying to dive in right there or what. But those cracks can ruin your day. And yeah, I hit it really hard. That might be a reason why. Might be a reason why that's in there. I struck that really hard. Because it's tough. This piece is really tough. I need to strike it really hard. Now sometimes a striking hard technique doesn't work with the particular stone, even though it might need it. That's one thing that new guys are not tuned into. The stone may need you to hit it really, really hard, but it can't withstand the shock. It can't withstand it, and it'll crack in weird ways. It's a funny thing, right? You would think that a rock that needs to be hit really hard is going to be pretty tough and stand up to the hits. No, it's not the case. That's why, some nappers will say the stone is not nappable, because the force needed to nap it is the same force that'll crack it in half. It might remove a flake, but you're going to shock the whole piece so much that it'll crack in half. It's got to have a balance in properties. It's got to be flakeable, but it also has to be flexible enough that it won't crack in half. You can tweak your technique and your strikes. When you start getting good enough, you can adapt to the stone. But when you're new, you can't adapt to the stone. You just are at its mercy, basically. And you'll not know what's going on. What's going on? Just when I'm at the point where I'm about to finish and I just need to remove a few more flakes and I've gotten used to the material, it doesn't want to cooperate. You might say to yourself, it doesn't want to cooperate. Why? Why right when I need it to cooperate, that's exactly the time it doesn't? Yeah, it's because you're not understanding that the force you're applying is too much for the stone. It's just too much. Even though it needs a lot of force to remove a flake, that amount of force will crack it in half, or pop the tip off, or something. It'll cause it to break in other ways. Just when you need it not to do that. Yeah. You're going to need to have a lot more practice to overcome that property of the stone. There is a sweet spot on all stones. Some guys can pick up on it faster than other guys. And when you hit that sweet spot, you know that you're able to do what you want with it. But until you are good enough, you're not going to know where that sweet spot is. That spot where you're hitting just hard enough to remove flakes, but not so hard that you'll snap the whole thing or snap the tip off. You can overstrike, or you can power strike these flakes off with excessive force. That is a technique. And what that will do is it'll send the flakes a lot further, and it may overshot. You may not care if it overshots, but that's what that technique offers you. Long, risky flakes, but they can be advantageous. As long as the whole piece can withstand it, you can power strike these flakes off and not crack it in half. Like some of these that I'm doing here. I will be power striking some of these off. That's why I'm mentioning it. And if you're looking at me and trying to judge how hard you should hit as a new guy, you're going to probably not know that sweet spot. And you'll hit too hard. Or you won't hit hard enough to get the same result. You know what I mean? And you won't know that. You won't pick it up from the video. You won't pick up the fact that I've discovered the sweet spot. And I probably won't say it because it just becomes second nature after a while. you know, my subconscious mind is going to say, oh, okay, I know. Okay, I'm getting to know what the balance is here. Hard enough to remove flakes, but not so hard that it'll snap the whole thing. And sometimes hard enough to snap the whole thing, but it's worth the risk. Because it's not really guaranteed that it'll snap in half. Yeah. You might get lucky and not snap in half. Like right there, I hit that so hard. I gotta hit it even harder this time. And it could snap everything in half, but I need to get long flakes here. So I have no choice really. Yeah. Still didn't hit it hard enough. See if I can double hit it. Sometimes you can hit it twice and get it to go further. Yeah, it did a little bit. It went a little bit further on this top end, which isn't too bad. See how it carried the flake further? I think that's what it did. Yeah. It's trying. It's trying to go. It's not that good of a piece. Even if I were to manage to clean that off with some good flakes, the quality of the material is not that good. And I probably have to leave that little crack in there. Right there. And that step fracture that accompanies it right there. We'll see. It's still not hard enough. I'm afraid to hit it harder than that because it will snap in half. Yeah. Got a feeling that this probably will not be able to handle the amount of force I need. I just need a wide flake. It doesn't need to be going that far. Just need wide flakes, but they're tending to be narrow. I don't know why. That's a little bit better. See, that was kind of narrow. I don't know why it didn't fan out. I hit it right there and I hit it inward, but it went that way. So this is much tougher than the one I was just napping that I snapped in half. If this material was that other material, it would have snapped in half by now, probably, because there's got to be defects in there that would weaken the stone enough that it would snap in half with some of these hits. If it was the other piece. But this is really tough. It's holding up pretty good, even though it's a little bit too tough and I can't get the flakes to travel. You might say, well, just prepare the edge better. Yeah, that does help, but sometimes the edge that is too strong will also snap it in half. If you got a platform that's too strong, you hit it really, really hard, that'll snap it in half. You didn't know that? Now you know. Well, that felt like it went, but it's only a partial. That felt like it went all the way, but see that? It stopped. Partially detached. Still only partially. Let's see if I can loosen it. Okay. Yeah, that loosened it up. Struck it right there. Pop that off, but it still has some undetached portion. That's from a second there. That's from the flake I just did. So the flake I just did was trying to go underneath that other flake. It popped it off, but it didn't quite make it all the way. Now I can just take it down a lot more narrow and then power through all that stuff, but I want to try to keep it wide as possible. So there's more to work with, you know, at the end. You know, somebody might want to be making a wide point, or they might be wanting to use it. They don't want it too narrow, because then as they resharpen, it gets way too narrow right away. They don't want to be using a drill for cutting meat. No. Some of you guys using these for cutting meat, I doubt it, but it's possible. It's always possible. Could be one of you guys out there experimenting with all these and not telling us. That's how I know it's probably not likely that you guys are doing it, because you're not telling us. And if you are not telling us, I don't know. I don't know about you. Whoa. Exactly what I don't like. How do you get over that? How do you fix that stuff? You don't, basically. Sometimes I have to give up. Or heat treat it and then try to power that off after it's heat treated. How do you power it off? You just do the little cheaty thing with this. But that one looks like it will dive. That one, I don't know. If I had a grinding wheel that could do this, I would grind that off. I wouldn't be messing with it. As a professional flint knapper, just grind that off and then flake over it. But as a video maker, it's good for content to see if I can actually do it. Can I actually remove that? I don't think I can. I think I just make it worse in this case. Now what I can do as a strategy is, you know, I put in that line of step fractures, take this back, and then shoot like I'm trying to do an overshot, and it will hit that from the back side, and it could clear it off, but I've got to make this a lot more narrow and try to shoot as hard as I can a flake into that area. A lot of times it'll expand out and take that off, and it'll be smooth if I'm lucky. Yeah, that's going to be debatable, because I can't even do it there with a really nice hit. It didn't go that far. It might be useless. Might be hopeless. Okay. Some guys like watching the damage control. Yeah. Yeah, I don't feel like napping right now. So, I don't know how good the quality is going to be. It's funny, I've done stuff that I don't want to do for so long that I can't really tell if I actually want to do it or not. or what? Am I just getting discouraged by this piece, or do I just not want to do it? It's not really worth this piece if it was just me by myself and trying to make some bifaces. As soon as I figured out that center part is just the devil, you know, that center is just too tough, I just toss it into the heat treat. I don't know. The more narrow it gets, also the chances start to rise for snapping in half. There comes a point where there's diminishing returns on the narrowness. Yeah, it's good for sending in flakes because you don't need to send them as far. But the snap in half chances go up because it's narrow. You know, it doesn't have to overcome much to snap it now. Whereas if it's wide, it takes more to snap it. Narrow, less energy to snap it. All right, let's see if we can have an effect on this. I could use metal on metal and get a lot harder hit, but that, I'm afraid it would be too hard. All right, let's see. That's interesting. Interesting, but not in a good way. Okay. So that's what you call an island, right? How do you defeat an island? Well, it's got to be a direct attack. It's the only thing you can do. Frontal assault and then pray that it doesn't break the whole thing. Yep. So that wasn't going to go away anyway. It's just too tough for the thinness that I was attempting. There are some times where, you know, if you attempt the thinness, it's just not going to do it. So you try the last resort. And just so you know what could happen, I'm showing you instead of deleting the video. Could that have worked? Yeah, if you're lucky, that works. But the path of least resistance in this case was to go through that better material at the bottom and try to go up through this tough material on the top. So it took the easiest route. These flakes will take the easiest route every time. That's just nature. That's just physics. It takes the path of least resistance. So that was the path of least resistance. It doesn't look that way. It looks like it actually cut through more stuff than it would normally cut through if it had just popped up. Just pop up. You'll cut through less material and it should work. No, this was the least resistance. It also has to do with the angles and all that. I might have struck, you know, it might have moved into this position and strike too high up instead of remaining flat and striking at this angle, it may have moved slightly. It's very easy to move as you're striking, or the strike will move it downward. If this is not perfectly in line, which it's not probably, it could strike down like that instead of just striking straight in. Okay, so you got to be aware of that too. All right, I'm not even gonna heat treat that. Let's see. Let's try to preserve it, right? Just try to preserve as much as possible. Let's see. I got some interference here. See, I think the dust settles in my glasses. Right? Because I'm looking downward. I think that's what happens. It only seems to happen in winter, so it could have something to do with condensation. Yeah. Condensation in combination with the dust, it'll accumulate right there where I need to see. And yeah, rock dust is hazardous. But it's not as hazardous as some people might think. Some people will tell you that, yeah, even at low levels, the silica dust is hazardous. Yeah, well, if that's the case, then many of the lifeguards spending hours and years on beaches would be lung cancer victims. And that sort of thing. Because they breathe in sand dust all day. And that's silica dust, in case you didn't know. You've really got to be heavily dosed with dust to have a cancerous effect. The body can get rid of low levels of dust easily. Silicosis is the term. It's when the silica interacts with your lungs chemically and starts to create scar tissue and irritation. But you gotta have high levels of dust. Which doesn't mean to start napping inside of enclosed areas, because this rando on the internet said it's not that bad. No. Always have ventilation. And or air filtration. Is that controlled? No. I can say it was controlled. You never know. Yeah. In this case, I don't care because I'm just trying to get something out of it. I'm not trying for a specific size or shape. If I needed something wider than that, I'd be screwed. Yeah. I'm just trying to get something out of it. Nothing special, nothing in particular. And I had that one big old piece left, so I said I might as well nap it. I can get flakes from it. I can get maybe some bifaces from it. And then move on to some other bigger and better things. Bigger, you might say? You know, it's just an expression, dude. Just an expression. Don't get too excited. Yeah, some guy says, rightly so. One of my subscribers said, I say I don't want to do no more big bifaces, and there I go making videos on big bifaces. And I told him, yeah, it makes me feel better to say I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. No. I feel better now, so I'm not going to do it. But then I get requests. Someone will email me. You sure you're not going to do it, dude? You sure? I don't know. Maybe I'll do a little more of those. But I got to be sneaky about it, or else I'm not going to do it. Yeah. I'll sneak them in once in a while. And if I feel like I'm being sneaky, yeah, have some fun with it. Yeah. Sneak them in once in a while. That's what I'm going to do. Just don't tell nobody. Because then it spoils the secret. It spoils the sneak. Yeah. Then it's not sneaky no more. Alright. Okay, here goes some risky stuff. Because if there's defects in here hitting on the base, you know what happens, right? But I gotta hit the base now while it's still thick in the middle. Relatively. Just in case. Now where Clovis is fluted this way with everything else thick and the base thin. I think so. I think they did the bases first on the Clovis. In many cases. Not all cases, because every culture that ended up adopting the Clovis had their own way of doing the Clovis. Now you might say, wait a minute. Clovis is its own culture, dude. It's its own culture. Yeah, it's debatable. I think Clovis as a point type was a meme. People liked it. They used their own techniques to make it. There was already people here before Clovis. Oh yes. I just watched a archaeology video today. It was 4 years old, but they're still of the opinion that the bow and arrow only existed relatively recently in the Americas. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that there's evidence, and pretty good evidence, that the bow and arrow appeared and disappeared at various times. And I think the oldest evidence is 8,000 years or something like that. I gotta look again. Personally, I think the bow and arrow came over with all the people that entered the New World to begin with. I think the bow and arrow was part of the technologies that they are aware of. And it doesn't take very long to reinvent the bow and arrow. How long can it take? People looking at strings attached to opposite ends of a stick. Especially if you got a bow drill. If you got a bow drill, no one came up with the idea of a bow and arrow after looking at a bow drill. After thousands of years of using bow drills, you think that they didn't come up with the idea of bow and arrow from that? Separately, independently? String attached between a bent stick. And the first thing they would do is, if it's tight enough, they would twang it, ding, 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 and make a musical instrument, ding, 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 ding. And then they go, so hold on a second, I can shoot little pebbles ding, ding, from this thing. Little kids are shooting pebbles from it. They're going, give me back my bow drill. No, I want to use it to shoot pebbles. What? What are you doing over there? Those pesky kids. Wait a second. Let's try to shoot a stick out of it. And the rest is history. Are you telling me that people were too dumb to think of it before 700 years ago? Is that what you're saying? These archaeologists that think the bow was not that old? I think they might be saying that they don't think people were smart enough to make it. And it didn't occur to anybody. Everyone's just going dum dum dum. Using bow drills? Yeah. No bows and arrows? No, we couldn't make the leap. We couldn't make the leap. And it didn't even need to be an idea from a bow drill, because maybe they didn't have bow drills either. Could be that they're just stringing up something, like a trap. Bend the stick. Put a string and bend the stick, and the string to the trap, and the noose. String boom, springs, and you get the idea. Wait a second, this kind of neat, this springy stick with a string on the trap. I wonder if I could use the springy stick to actually hit the animal. So they start experimenting with setting traps where you'd bend a stick and have those spikes sticking out, attach it, and then have a trigger with a little trip line, and they hit the trip line, and doop, this little stick with a spike comes out and it hits the whatever trips it. And then after a while they start thinking, you know, it'd be cool instead of having the spike attached to the springy stick with a string, I can come up with something that I can shoot the spike with the bent stick with the string in there. Shoot the spike at the animal. Yeah. Might start small and get bigger. Or they're shooting their atlatl darts and they're going, I wish there was a better way to shoot the atlatl dart. Maybe I can make a big old bow and shoot the big old atlatl dart with it. Yeah. And lo and behold, I think that happened. There are big old arrows out there that have been shot with bows, especially if you look in tropical areas. The indigenous population of tropical areas, you've seen how big their arrows are? They're the size of atlatl darts and they're shooting them from bows. Where did that idea come from? I don't know. They're not smart enough to make the connection, right? I think they are. I think they're smart enough to reinvent the bow many times throughout history. Same with Flintknapping. Smart enough to reinvent Flintknapping. Even if there were hundreds of years with no Flintknappers, it would come back just because it's not that difficult to figure out. Especially if your mind is sharper or not poisoned by chemical spills, yada yada yada. That sort of thing. Right? Yeah, I watch the news, but I don't discuss the news on this channel. Yeah. It's not real news anymore. News used to ask questions. You might say they still ask questions. Yeah. They ask a question framed as a statement. They frame this question as if they were saying a statement. Like, wouldn't it be better if blah 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 blah? Wouldn't it be better if blah 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 blah? That's not really a question. You're trying to make a statement that it would be better to blah blah blah. You just put the wouldn't it be in the beginning to pretend you're asking the question. Yeah. So I don't watch the news. Not that kind of news. Stupids. Stupid news people. Yeah. They must be drinking the tap water or something. Gotta someone tell the news people to stop drinking the tap water. Yeah. I never thought I'd say that. I drank tap water all my time growing up. I grew up in New Hampshire. The tap water was awesome. I mean, it was probably healthy except for the lead, right? Because I think they used lead to seal the pipes up. Or lead was in the solder, in some of the solders back then. We had copper piping. Fancy stuff, but the solder might have contained lead in it. I don't know how old the house was, but we lived in several different houses. I imagine at least one of those houses had plumbing that was kind of dicey by today's building codes. Yeah. Anyway, where did I go? Where was I going to go? Tap water. Yeah, I never thought I'd say that you're probably better off not drinking the tap water. Yeah. It's a shame. Now you might say, well, it's not going to lead you to asking questions that are actually framed like statements. Drinking bad tap water is not going to lead to that kind of weird political stuff. Yeah. Well, if it makes it kind of cuckoo in the head, maybe it does. Yeah. You never know. I've heard of weirder things than that, believe me. Now, do I actually believe that toxic chemicals can make you irrational? It gets complicated. It actually depends on the chemical. So yeah, I think some of them can lead to a degrading of the ability to think, and then after a while you just become emotional and irrational. Yep, that's all. Does it affect the Flintknapping? Yeah. Unfortunately, gotta be. It helps. You don't have to be, but it helps to be mentally healthy to Flintknap. If you want to be learning it quickly, it helps to be mentally healthy a lot. Although it's a funny thing, the ability to do handicrafts and stuff like Flintknapping is pretty much hardwired into us, so we can do it under amazingly difficult and stressful situations. We can still produce things even though we're highly stressed, highly mentally handicapped or disabled or distressed in some way. You can still make stuff in many cases. Like in my case, when I started napping, I was very depressed, and napping helped me to do something productive, because being productive was good for my mental state. You know, I felt good after the accomplishment of turning some rocks into something useful. Something that looks like magic to some people. Yeah. It's amazing. So yeah, I was napping in the beginning while depressed. So it can be done. It's just not ideal because I think it took me a little longer than it could have. Yeah, I think I might have learned it a little bit better if I wasn't depressed at the time. Because if you're just going through the motions, right, so that you can be distracted and just work on stuff just to get your mind off of other things, you tend to not self-criticize and get into ruts and do the same thing over and over, but in a bad way. Not looking to improve, just getting yourself into a rut. Can you get yourself into a rut of breaking stuff constantly? Yes, you can. You can start developing the pattern for breaking stuff, and then have an extremely hard time getting out of that pattern. So you got to pay attention to what kind of pattern your mind is picking up. Yeah, I know it's very difficult. The brain can be trained, but it's difficult. One of the most difficult things to do is to correct kooky thinking, because kooky thinking wants to continue to be kooky. That's what it wants. It wants to continue that way. You start changing kooky thinking and you feel like you're going insane. It's ironic, right? You take an insane pathway and you feel like you're insane for a while, until it becomes the habit, and then you feel sane. But during the habit forming process, sometimes you're saying to yourself, consciously or unconsciously, wait a second, why am I doing this? Or, I'm not going to do it yet. I'm not going to do it yet. Oh, wait. It's getting on my nerves doing this the other way. Yeah. The healthier your mind is, the easier it is for you to transition to doing it in a better way. That's one of the hardest things to do right there. I'm just going to let you know. To thin down a thin area even more and not break it. Now, it didn't go quite as well as I thought. It's pretty typical. I'm thinking of stopping right there because this is where I normally mess it up. Yeah. So I might stop here in a second. Why do I usually mess it up at this stage? Because I start to relax a little bit because I've overcome a lot of the obstacles already. So I start relaxing. But I can't. It has to be the opposite. I cannot relax at this stage. It's like running a race. You know, the home stretch is extremely important. And you have to pour on the energy at the home stretch. And same with napping. So you want to pace yourself at the beginning of the race. When you're napping, pace yourself so that during the home stretch, the hardest part is the ending. You're not worn out. So if you're worn out at the ending, you're gonna go, I almost had it. Every time I reach the ending, it beats me. It defeats me. Something bad happens and I don't win. Stone wins. Stone 10, me 0. It's because you're not your best at the home stretch. In many cases. Some of you mess up in the beginning and you just can't get past the bifacing stage. You know, you get to the first sweat stage. What's the first sweat stage? After you knock a bunch of pieces off the nodule and you start to biface, and it starts to get to the point where you can't make any mistakes. That starts to sweat. That starts this sweat. The sweat stage is when you can't be making mistakes. When it becomes critical that you make certain flake removals, you start to get all nervous and shaky. Some people can't get past the sweat stage. They're always in the sweat stage, or they get there, they hit that wall where they get anxious and they end up breaking it every time. Can't get past that stage. Yeah, it's extremely hard to train your brain to get past it, because you're going to feel insane trying to do it at first, because you got to change your ways a little bit. Maybe you got to get the indirect percussion sticks out that you've never used. Yeah, you spent $60 on your indirect percussion stick because someone made it and it looked pretty cool, but you haven't tried it yet. Because every time you get it out and you start hitting the stone, you go, this is not the way I nap. It makes me feel insane. Yeah, I know. I know. How do I know this? Is it like someone told me this before? Or did I see it lurking around on the internet? Have I seen people say, I haven't tried indirect, but I think I'm leaning toward it because nothing else is working? Have I seen people say that? I don't know. I'll never tell, because if I tell, then give away the fact that I've been lurking around on different forums seeing what people do. Yeah. I want to see what other people do. It turns out most of them are not doing stuff that it amazes me what they're not doing. Yeah. Like they're not napping the little chips. They're napping only the big stuff. Sometimes I don't care because I can go through the nap-ins and get the scraps. And I'll nap the little stuff. Yeah. So sometimes I don't care. But they'll ask me, how do I transition from the tools that I'm used to this indirect stuff, or using more billets or whatever, using spatula tools? How do I transition to using them? I never use them. I never used them, and I feel goofy using them. Yeah. I look around and see how other people might have overcome it. I don't care. Personally, I'll try something. If I don't like it, I don't like it. Or if I like it, I'll steal it. Yeah. Oh, yes. A lot of times I try all kinds of methods. I try all kinds of stuff, and most of it doesn't work for me. Most of the methods I try, if I'm just trying stuff out, either I'm too set in my ways already, or I just have a certain mindset that says No. Don't like it. Or it's giving me some results, but they look weird because I'm looking for a certain type of result. If I'm not getting it, I gotta decide, am I gonna spend time trying to get the result with this tool or not? Like the swiping technique. For a long time I didn't use it with the metals. I used it with abo from the beginning, the flat spots. But with metals I used the rounded, the gouging. I like the rounded stuff, this stuff. I didn't use the flat stuff with the metals. After I started using it, I said, I don't know. I wasn't that great at it at first. I'm thinking to myself, is it worth it trying to transition to this type of technique? And it was hard in the beginning, but it wasn't all that hard because, like I said, I've used it before, but it's a different story with the metal than what it is with a natural tool. Natural tools will grab into it either grabs more or less than the metal. The metal is a middle ground. It can spoil you. You can start doing it and get good results, and then you start taking it for granted. And when you start taking it for granted, you end up snapping a lot of pieces in half. So you got to back off, and then let's see, start over again. Let's see, what am I doing that's breaking everything? It started out really good. Now what's wrong? It turns out that I didn't realize how much would get embedded in the metal. I figured there wasn't going to be an issue with metal, the stone getting embedded in there like it does with antler. But yeah, it does. It gets embedded in there. In the aluminum. The aluminum is really good. It does it with copper and steel too, but it does it really. It really affects the aluminum. And I haven't ground that off, so there's probably a lot of embedded stuff in there which is impeding the flakes when I'm using it, like today. But oh well. I'll live with it. I'll break a few pieces. This stuff is not the best stuff in the world, so not too upset about not being able to flake this. Yeah, I think that's good enough. Good enough for the video, I suppose. I gotta call it quits for tonight. I think I stayed up a little too late. With a little more rest, I probably could have shot that flake a little bit better, but oh well. Yeah, there's plenty of room. I can take it down, make it more narrow, and shoot some flakes in. From this side, there's a nice ridge. There's two of them. There's one right there and one right there. This one I'll have to take a little bit off of this so it's more convex, so it doesn't rise and then dip and then rise again. Get rid of that rise here so that way it's pretty much a straight shot into that mess. It could end up being another island, and then I'll have to come back in with a spatula tool and try to remove the island like before, with the inherent risk of it diving and breaking everything again. But this one isn't as bad as the other one. Yeah. And especially if I heat treat this, those flakes would run a lot better. Yeah, so I'll probably heat treat it if I don't offer it in the auction just as a low grade biface. Okay. I think that's what I might call this one, low grade biface. Yeah. Yeah, the wrist brace is working pretty good. I've worn one before, but it does interfere slightly, but it works all right. Alrighty.